Yeah, well, if there's one thing that we can say Ben Simmons doesn't complement Joel Embiid, that's the shooting. That's the one thing. That's the Achilles heel of this conversation on whether or not those two, talent-wise, you got a 6'10" point guard. He can defend, pass, do all those things. But when they come to double team Joel, because they're going to double team, he demands a double team. You have to have shooters around there to make them pay. And that's the one thing that Ben Simmons is going to have to improve on so that he can complement and reach his potential of saying this is who they could be. Bigs have been the last to advance in this small ball era. But every big that has won, they have one common denominator when they are the best team on the team. If you have a big and he can pass the ball, it forces you to double them with a big guy, because a small guy going to double team Joel Embiid, he can't even see the double team.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
he's passing over the head.
So when you talk about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, great passer. When you talk about Tim Duncan, great passer. When you talk about Shaq, passer. All great bigs who won a championship, and you play through them, they have to be able to pass the ball. What you're seeing from Joel Embiid now, in my humble opinion, he is right there in the category, not because he can score. Jokic, this is what makes him, I call him the most charming player in the NBA because of his passing ability. I mean, last night when he played against the Lakers, not to go off here, but I mean, he put some moves down last night against Dwight Howard that simply, they were mind-boggling, because Dwight Howard was one of the most elite athletes to play the position. Jokic, I don't know if he can beat you and I in a foot race.
No comment. I got love for that joke. No comment.
I'll take my chances, right? I'm not saying I can beat him, but it'll be close.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna tell you what, his passing ability, Mo, I wish you and I could just do a highlight reel of his passing. His no-look passing is like some of the greatest passing I've seen. And he's a center.
Mm-hmm.
So Joel Embiid and Jokic, to me, are NBA championship caliber players, regardless of the position. And now it's just about getting the right formula around them, because those two, Mo, I think if you get them in the right place, I don't see anyone being able to stop them except each other. They're the only two to me, and that would be a great matchup, right? Because we talk about small ball, but I would love to see a Jokic and a Joel Embiid
7
NBA
games
finals
chess match.
That would be great. That would be phenomenal just to watch.
Just touching on this, Jokic leads all big men, all centers in assisted points created with 18. Okay. But then you go down that list, you have Julius Randle second at 14. But I think that's a product of, he's just that number one option and everyone's focused on him when they play the Knicks. Then you have Domantas Sabonis at 12, who obviously is an elite passer coming out of Europe. Yes. You know the vibes with that already. But then Joel Embiid is fourth on that list. He's the only other big man in double digits. After that, it drops off and you get Karl-Anthony Towns, Al Horford, and those guys. But Joel Embiid is creating almost 11 points a night off his assists. And if he can continue to do that, and the Sixers players can continue to do that, man, just get me Buddy Hield and Harrison Barnes. Just give me some role players in exchange for Ben Simmons and just go all in on Joel Embiid this year. Because I don't care. Simmons ain't going to play for them. He ain't going to get an all-star return. It's time to bite the bullet. Just get him some shooters, some defenders, and some playmakers. Let's just do it and give Joel the respect that he deserves, because they would be capable of contending. You add, not even take anyone away from the current rotation. You're adding Buddy Hield, one of the league's top 3-point shooters. I know he has his flaws, but one of the league's top 3-point shooters. And Harrison Barnes is a player that every team in the NBA would want on his roster. 3-point shooting, defense. You add them to the team at no cost.
I think, Mo, short term, you may have an argument. However, they drafted Ben Simmons with the number 1 pick.
Short term, you win a championship. This is my thing is, do the Raptors regret trading for Kawhi? He left after a year. No. Do the Lakers regret trading for Anthony Davis?
Okay, but they didn't draft Kawhi. They didn't draft Kawhi. So the best example that I have is the following. Short term, the Detroit Pistons drafted Darko Milicic.
Yes, sir.
Okay. In short term, they won a championship. But what if, Mo, you would have drafted Carmelo Anthony? That would have gave you a 10-year run.
Yeah. But also,
I'm not saying they would have won in there, but that would have allowed you to make a long-term play. You can't draft a player like Ben Simmons and then suddenly just say, well, we're willing to give him away because X, Y, and Z. Because the reason saying, Mo, is this. There's 4 ways to get good in this league, and we can have a whole show on this, but I just want to say this real quick to our listeners. 4 ways for you to get good in the NBA. You can do it through the draft. You can do it through free agency. You can do it through a trade, or you can do it from within. Daryl Morey, who is the current GM president of the organization, he has an opportunity to explore one of those 4 alternatives.
And shout out to Tyrese Maxey from Building Within.
Yes.
He's really stepped up.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You draft a player and you hope the player that you draft isn't the player that's going to show up in your building. You hope that your improvement, working with your coaches, experience, that he will get better. Tyrese Maxey is another one. Okay. Tyrese Maxey in a year or 2 could be an all-star. You know, look at Darius Garland now.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm saying is, if you look at this, and I know you don't watch, and maybe our listeners don't watch a lot of, basketball stateside, there are some really, really good young players in this draft. Like I told you last year about Evan Mobley. I told you about Evan Mobley last year. Okay. There are some players in this draft that could be stars.
Okay.
And it's Daryl Morey's job to determine wherever that value is best for the organization. And does that mean turning Ben Simmons into a draft pick who turns out to be in the draft? Does that mean he gets a draft pick and maybe the draft pick, whatever, gets that all-star, whatever caliber? But you better be sure you get the following. You better get a player who has the potential to be an all-star. I'm not saying he is an all-star. So for instance, if you're saying, who would I trade Ben Simmons for today? The kid down in Oklahoma, I would trade him today. SG. Yeah. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. Now, that's the type of kid I'm looking to get back. Okay. Now, that kid, based on what I could see, is in the draft. He's going to be in the draft. I've seen some terrific players. And all I'm saying is, if you're telling me you are only concentrating on this year or next year, then I don't think you're doing your due diligence as an executive. I'm not saying I haven't spoken to Daryl Morey about this, but I think he has the responsibility to go through this process before making the final decision of when that can happen. Because if I get a chance to draft in the top 2 or 3, because Ben Simmons at the very least should get you in the top 3 of a draft, if need be.